Hello, welcome back. Quite a difference a week makes, right? Last week I did this Music Minute in my jeans and a sweater, and today I'm definitely not doing that. For those who don't know, we do not circulate the air in here during the week usually, and so it's pretty toasty in here right now. So shorts are the order for the day. But welcome back to Music Minute. We're glad that you're here. Again, this is our social persisting here at Epiphany Lutheran Church with some music to listen to and just unwind for the day. I'm Kevin Barger, the Director of Music Ministries here. Today we're going to start with an Easter hymn. This is Christ is Alive, Let Christians Sing. And this hymn really has a fascinating history. And it was originally written in 1968. And the reason that it was written actually was following the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. And so Brian Wren, who wrote the text for this, had that as his first text, but then it wasn't quite capturing what he wanted to capture as the text for an Easter hymn. So he revised it again in 1978, which those of you in the ELCA tradition might remember as the year of LBW, right? The Green Hymnal. Then again in 1989, he did it again. We didn't have a new Lutheran hymnal in the ELCA at that point in time, but he still didn't quite have it right, so yet again in 1993, he did what is now the final revision on it, and those are the words that we will be singing tomorrow in worship as our gathering hymn. That he really felt captured the perfect thing. The tune is actually named for a city in England, Truro, and the text and tune for this one, sometimes last week we talked about where the text and the tune were written at the same time because they kind of complemented each other. And in contrast, this one actually, these are about 200 years apart between text and tune. So we hope you enjoy this. I'm going to do an organ, it's sort of an organ processional kind of sounding thing. So hope you enjoy this trumpet voluntary on Christ is Alive, Let Christians Sing. it sort of takes the whole way to the end, and you end up with what we end up singing, sort of the speed. It was half that speed as we went forth with the melody in the beginning. But I think most people know that tune. So now we are going to move to the piano, and we're going to talk about Come We That Love the Lord. And I'll move over there now. Had to get some page turn help today, so Jake, thanks for turning my pages there. And Come We That Love the Lord. Many people will recognize this tune. And this is another one that there's a great gap between when the text and the tune were written, another about 200 years as you look at this. It's a bit older than the one we just talked about. This actually, Isaac Watts was the writer of this. And remember him from a couple weeks ago. He was one of the authors of those texts that we were talking about. This particular one had 10 stanzas, and you'll notice a trend here as we go through the weeks. There are often a lot of stanzas that were originally written, and we don't sing that many today. For whatever reason, we cut things out. What we'll sing in the hymnal tomorrow is actually verse 1, 3, 9, and 10. So you sort of get the beginning and the end. And the original text that was written to this was not really a gospel kind of tune. What you'll hear now is this, of course, what you... Probably recognize that. You might also know this as We're Marching to Zion. That's also a common name for this. So this particular arrangement of it on the piano is actually not big and bombastic with a whole lot of fast-moving gospel chords, but rather it's more introspective. So you'll still hear a lot of the gospel harmonies that you like and enjoy, but there's a lot of much slower than we would sing it tomorrow, and you might have to listen a little bit harder in some places for the melody to be popping out. So it gives you time to enjoy the melody and it doesn't go flying by you. So we are going to move back to the organ now, back and forth today. So as we move back to the organ for this last one, I will tell you a little bit about my great footwear. If you were seeing that, here I am in shorts and these lovely shoes and socks. And I'm not trying to make a fashion statement. If you don't know, for playing the organ, we have special shoes, and that's so that we can feel things better on the keyboard down there with our feet. So there's a pretty big heel on these shoes so that you can alternate your foot from heel to toe for the technique that we need to use for that. And the bottom of the shoes feels a lot like bowling shoes. If you remember from those days, they're kind of soft and velvety, so they move easily across those keys. So that's why I'm wearing them, not because I want to make a fashion statement. They are beautiful, I realize. Anyway, so for closing, we are going to do Love Divine, All Loves Excelling. And this one, so there's a little bit of disparity with this. This actually is a hymn that appears in almost every hymnal that there is. So the hymn tune is Hyfrydal, and that's commonly mispronounced. It looks like Hyfrydal, Hyfrydol, but that's not how you say it, obviously. But this is done in 14 contemporary hymnals that we looked at, and all of them use this tune, and actually the tune itself in those 14 hymnals was used 44 times. So it's a very popular tune. I suspect that you will recognize it if you don't recognize it from the title, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. A lot of folks love the tune, but there's a disparity in denominations. So that's why there are so many text options to it, because the original words that were sort of put to it, some denominations felt one way about those words, and other denominations felt another way, and they were at odds with each other, and so that's why there have been so many variations and uses of the tune. It's very singable, and I think you'll recognize it as we go through. We're going to do a toccata version of it today, and a toccata is sort of a flashy sort of piece. It's a lot of fun, usually has a lot of notes, and it's usually pretty quick. So this is toccata number 1, as we call it, based on Love Divine, All Loves Excelling. So I hope you enjoyed that. That would probably be a common postlude had we been in person tomorrow, that you could have come up and watched a little closer, which when we get back together, I hope you will come up and see things a little closer at hand. So that concludes our time for this evening. We do have our typical offerings tomorrow, and those include coffee and donuts at 9 o'clock, our Lego and Learn at 9 o'clock as well. Those are both via Zoom. And at 10 o'clock, there is Sunday School opening with Mr. Scott and myself, and that's also via Zoom. And then we also have Bible study tomorrow, and I don't remember what time that is. I think that's at 9 o'clock as well. And there's so many things. Worship at 10:30. So that will be here on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. And we hope to see you then. Until then, have a good evening. We'll see you next week.